What's up, peeps? It's your boy, Paul Gallant, on a Friday, wearing yet another tropical shirt that has cats on them. I have 4 of these at this point in time. I decided to move Ask Gallant Anything up, for the very few people who are aware of the last one, to a time where maybe more people would watch. I realize it's a Friday, and that a lot of people are probably, unplugging for the weekend. But I thought to myself, yeah, it was cool and all doing Gallant at night on Friday nights, but I'm pretty sure like 5 people listened, which is probably why we were able to do Ask Gallant Anything as easily as we were, and why people enjoyed it when they did tune in. So I thought to myself, okay, well, at 2 o'clock, we could definitely get a lot of my new audience, the people of Seattle who listen to Danny and Gallant every single day, to tune in and potentially ask some questions. And then we could also get, since it's 4 o'clock Central, some maybe Houstonites, my other people, on as well for a little happy hour action. So there you go. Okay, before we dive into your questions, I did want to talk about the thing that you probably don't want to hear about. How many of you are tired of hearing about Colin Kaepernick and the National Football League? I imagine it's a lot of you. I understand why. Part of me, though, wants to tell you, hey, he had a message a couple of years ago, and a lot of you, for whatever reason, decided to yourself, you know, I'm not going to pay attention to it because I don't like the way that he's going about protesting. But now you can't get away from it, right? Because all sorts of athletes have finally decided that they're powerful enough to speak up. I'm not going to dive into any really more on that side of things. There are a lot of factors that could potentially be why Colin Kaepernick does not have a job in the NFL. Part of it has to do with the way that he protested, and the NFL collectively saying, this isn't good for business. Not great. Some of it also has to do, I think, with some other things that people maybe don't think about off the top of their head. Yeah, there's that element of, could Colin Kaepernick play football anymore? And I think some people would argue that he's not the same player. But at the same time, you take a look at all the backup quarterbacks across the National Football League. He's got to be better than some of them, right? He's got to be better than some of them. So let's get to the point. Pete Carroll, yesterday, head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, he met with the media for about an hour. He answered a variety of different questions about Colin Kaepernick, who the Seahawks had entertained potentially bringing in 2017. They brought him in for an interview at the very least. And then in 2018, they almost brought him in again. But both times they didn't sign him. And Pete, during his press conference, said in retrospect that he regrets that they weren't able to bring him in. And he said a couple of different things about why maybe they didn't bring him in. That he wasn't a fit, that maybe he wasn't a backup quarterback, that he was starter quality, which doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, right? He's a starting caliber quarterback, but we're not going to bring him in because he's not a fit. It doesn't seem to add up. And I know that a lot of people have had some takes on Pete because I understand it doesn't make a whole lot of sense at face value. You had Jameel Hill saying, I don't believe you. You had Joe Fan, NBC Sports Northwest, who I respect a great deal, who wrote a scorcher of a column saying also that maybe he's lying through his teeth here. Instead of going down all the different rabbit holes of why Colin Kaepernick doesn't have a job that involve the anthem protests and then involve potentially him not being the same player anymore, and I'm going to ask you a question. Is it possible that there maybe was another factor in Colin Kaepernick not having a job in the NFL? Is it possible that it has nothing to do with NFL owners? This one factor. I'm not saying that's the only factor. If that's the number one factor, he's out of the league. Is it possible that it has nothing to do with owners, and it has nothing to do with Kaepernick and some of the divisive things that he did, whether it was the pig socks or the Malcolm X with Fidel Castro t-shirt? Hear me out. So, remember when the Baltimore Ravens nearly brought in Colin Kaepernick? Ray Lewis weighed in on this. He said that it was really close to happening. And then all of a sudden, Colin Kaepernick's girlfriend posted a picture of Ray Lewis with Steve Biscotti next to a picture of Samuel L. Jackson's character from Django Unchained kissing up to Leonardo DiCaprio's character from Django Unchained. In case you don't know, Samuel L. Jackson's character in that movie is the head slave, and Leonardo DiCaprio's character is this plantation owner. There's a confrontation that arises in that movie, but leading up to it, Samuel L. Jackson is kissing the hiney of Leonardo DiCaprio all along the way. To make that kind of comparison, it's pretty insulting, to say the least, to Ray Lewis, also to Steve Biscotti. The Ravens, when that happened, they decided that they weren't going to bring in Colin Kaepernick. That's what Ray Lewis, at the very least, said. Take that for what you will. Ray Lewis, when he speaks, very often it's difficult to fathom what he's saying. Sort of starts speaking in tongues, goes off on these tangents. Apparently he's got some podcast coming out soon. Yikes. I don't want to listen to that. But that's one factor. Now think about the Seattle Seahawks and why Kaepernick might not be aboard. Because you think about it, okay, backup quarterback to Russell Wilson. You want to have a guy who's mobile. You want to have a guy who's probably familiar with the team in some way, shape, or form. Kaepernick definitely is, given that he played against the Hawks in some really important games in the mid-2010s. So there are a lot of things adding up to potentially him coming aboard. Kaepernick had reached out to Pete Carroll for advice, Pete told us on Thursday, that on how to maybe get back in the league. So in 2017, Kaepernick comes in, it doesn't work out. In 2018, though, it might have been closer than you think. And I'm not really working with anything here. I'm just throwing a theory out because I think it would be consistent with what happened to him in Baltimore. Is it possible that it was somebody else's fault that he did not end up signing with the Seattle Seahawks? I go to hearing that there was an interview between the Seahawks and Colin Kaepernick. Then all of a sudden, you get this report that Colin Kaepernick was asked to stand during the national anthem by the Seahawks. We heard from Pete Carroll yesterday, and I believe Pete Carroll when he says that the conversations between he and Kaepernick had nothing to do with anthem protests at all. I do think that he was trying to get a feel for whether or not he would actually be a fit on the Seahawks as a backup quarterback, which, by the way, if you really think about it, say things did not go so well for the Seahawks back then, before Russell Wilson was as established as he is right now, in a locker room with lots of vocal voices. Richard Sherman, Doug Baldwin, Michael Bennett. That was a loud team. Nothing against that, but say things started to hit the fan. Would all of a sudden they start calling for Colin Kaepernick or doing things that could be potentially, I don't know. I hate to accuse someone of even thinking of doing this, but like somewhat sabotaging. Let's just say sabotaging to Russell Wilson's ability to command. That might have been one of the reasons that the Seahawks stayed away from it. And I think that they asked Colin Kaepernick what he wants to be, because if he wants to be a starter, okay, well then that might lead to some sort of weird mutiny that could happen, say things don't go according to plan. So let's fast forward back to 2018 and that conversation that Pete Carroll had with Colin Kaepernick, where he claims there was no back and forth at all that had to do with standing during the anthem. There's a report that comes out from Adam Schefter that said that that's what it was all about. Well, if you're the Seahawks and you see that, I understand that it's not the best of looks to decide to pass on Colin Kaepernick again because of all the noise that's attached with it. But if that's coming out and it's not true, where's the trust? And that's not the trust between Kaepernick and Carroll. That's the trust between Carroll, the Seahawks, and the people that are around Colin Kaepernick, who clearly back in Baltimore had an impact on whether or not he was employed. So that's just food for thought. Something that I thought of, and I wonder if that potentially is one of the reasons that Kaepernick was not able to get a job. I do wonder also right now if somebody's going to be willing to give him one, and whether or not he's going to be willing to take one. we have heard so little from him. That is why these conversations continue. These conversations also continue because there are no sports going on right now. And I know that a lot of you, you guys are a little bit tired of hearing about this conversation. Yeah, I don't blame you. Well, blame baseball. Baseball continues to go on this merry-go-round of proposals that are leaked through the media that when you read them really quickly, you think to yourself, oh, okay, well, maybe there's some progress being made towards a compromise between the players and the owners. And then you actually see the details and you realize, oh, the owners are just slightly changing things and the players are just slightly changing things. And this stubborn game of chicken is akin to two steamrollers driving at one another from 100 yards away. So eventually there might be a giant collision. One of the steamrollers might get crushed by the other. But they're moving so damn slow that it's really hard to envision it happening anytime soon. And because of that, along the way, there are going to be a lot of people that are thinking to themselves, you know what? Is this really worth it? Do I really like baseball this much to just forget about all the petty stubbornness that we're seeing right now? Especially when the CBA expires next year. The CBA expires. You think there's not going to be more drama like this? Oh, there absolutely will be more like this. And I think that's one of the reasons that no one is deciding to give any ground. It's because they feel that that might hurt them when it comes to next year and negotiations for that next collective bargaining agreement. But Paul, basketball's almost back, right? Well, you would think so. But a week ago, we heard that the players and the Board of Governors and that everyone had agreed on a plan that would see basketball return with 22 teams in Orlando. There would be 16 teams playing in the playoffs, and there'd be a play-in tournament. I think potentially if teams were in a certain amount of games with one another when it does return. All of a sudden, some of the players are saying publicly that they're not so sold on the idea of playing in Orlando in a bubble, which is understandable. I mean, would you want to be stuck in Orlando for 2.5 months, 3 months, 3.5 months? No offense to Orlando, but between the awful high school football referees that cost us a game that one time and more importantly, like Orlando just not being a good place, period, then I can sort of get it. You're going to be trapped in Disney World for 3.5 months. It's a small world. It's going to get real old after a while. Only so many times you can go to the Magic Kingdom. Only so many times you can go to, I believe it's the Disney Hollywood Studios, used to be called MGM. That's the best one, by the way, of all the places. As someone who used to live in Florida, go there on a regular basis. We used to go there once a year for a football game, and we would typically play some team from Orlando before, and then we would stay in Disney World, go to the Magic Kingdom the next day. One of the team traditions was that the entire team would go into the Pirates of the Caribbean store after the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and they would steal all of the stuff in the Pirates of the Caribbean store. I never participated in that, and I can say that with a straight face, but I know that that is something that continued. A tradition that was started by, I believe, the class that was ahead of us at my high school, and eventually the entire senior football team, I think it was like 3 or 4 years later, got suspended for basically the whole season for doing it. So, there you go. That's sort of where the downfall of Shorecrest football began. No one cares about that. Anyway, Disney World, number 1, Hollywood Studios. 2, I like Epcot. You can walk around. There's some places to eat. Number 3, Animal Kingdom is pretty cool. 4, the boardwalk. But you're doing all these things like over and over and over again. 3.5 months being trapped there? No, sorry. Hard pass. You're not on actual water. You're on like lagoons and lakes. Nope. No. So I can see what some players are like, all right, do we really want to be here this long of a period of time? But what I'm hearing, and this is what bothers me, I am hearing that the person that is rallying everyone together, it is none other than Kyrie bleeping Irving. Kyrie Irving, who is extremely frustrating to me as a Celtics fan for the shenanigans that he pulled last season and for just being an awful teammate. What we're hearing from Kyrie Irving is that he doesn't want to come back and return to play with the New York Nets. The New Jersey Nets? No, the Brooklyn Nets, my bad. He's not going to go back and play after suffering an injury that was going to keep him out for a long period of time at the end of this past regular season that's still, I guess, going to continue when games do resume in Orlando. But when I think about Kyrie Irving being involved in these decisions, Kyrie Irving, who is going to go to Orlando to support his teammates but not to actually play, I sort of think to myself, why is anyone listening to Kyrie? And it's funny because if you hear people that talk about Kyrie Irving, there's a podcast, I forget the name of it. I shouldn't. It's a very good podcast. Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, I believe, do it. And they've said on said podcast that Kyrie Irving gets a bad rap and people don't really know him very well. But it's hard to really sympathize with a guy who doesn't believe that the world is round and somebody that was an awful malcontent in Boston and someone who seemed like he was on the verge of becoming an awful malcontent in Brooklyn. All of a sudden, for games that he's not going to play in, he's going to be an influence in whether or not basketball resumes. It's a little frustrating. It involves a lot of stubborn people. I hope that basketball returns. I really don't care if baseball comes back. I don't. You know me. Baseball Paul is not the biggest fan of baseball. He ironically watches it sometimes. He is now going to be covering a baseball team in the Seattle Mariners that definitely have a long way to go, and I don't think we're going to see any of the real promising signs of what they can be right away. I mean, Jared Kelenic, Julio Rodriguez, they're top two hitting prospects, and Logan Gilbert as a pitcher. Like, I don't know that we're going to see any of those guys anytime soon this coming season. Maybe the lack of a minor league season means that we get to see them. And I know for those who are watching me who are Astros fans, I mean, this is a pretty big year for you. You've got the ability to shut a lot of people up, assuming that the Astros, their production was not a result of cheating, which some people would argue it was. Some people would argue it wasn't, and that cheating problem was rampant across baseball. I'll be honest, I really don't know. I do think that more teams cheated. But what the Astros did, I mean, they got caught red-handed, and it looks really, really bad. But whatever the case, not that excited necessarily about the return of baseball. Really not. And with all this petty BS that they're doing, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Like, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about it coming back? So, it's Ask Gallant Anything. You can ask any questions, and I'll work it in. Tommy Narin asks this question. Kaepernick should have a shot with Houston. He would have had to beat out Tom Savage. LOL. Here's what I can tell you about 2017 with the Texans and with Colin Kaepernick as well. The Texans were in a situation after Deshaun Watson tore his ACL in the game against the Seattle Seahawks, or in the practice after the game against the Seattle Seahawks, where they were without their quarterback for the rest of the year. If you watch the first game of the season, Tom Savage got sacked a billion times in the first half. He gets benched. Deshaun Watson comes in. It's not much better with Watson in there, but at the very least, there's a little bit of excitement. There's a little bit of hope. And Watson, over the next couple of games, really took off and seemed like he was going to be one of the next big stars in all of the NFL. He gets hurt, and you know what that offensive line was. I really, really wonder if Bob McNair was no longer with us, if Bob McNair had passed away by that point. I really do wonder if the Texans would have brought him in, because there were conversations behind closed doors about their offensive line, which they considered to be one of the worst in the league, and that they needed a mobile quarterback behind it. You think they wouldn't have brought in Colin Kaepernick when they were, 3-3, 3-4 after losing to Seattle? I think they would have. But if it wasn't up to Bill O'Brien, I will say there's a column, I think, in the Houston Chronicle that someone asked me about as one of the questions about whether or not the Texans would take a knee during the national anthem. And both Bill O'Brien and Cal McNair said, yeah, they're going to, going forward. Pretty interesting. Got to admit. All right. What other questions do we have? Why haven't they named the hockey team yet? Asks Randy. I have no clue. And it is really annoying. It is really, really, really annoying. You would think that at this point that they would have given us a nickname. I mean, there's nothing to talk about right now. I'm just talking about me from a sports talk show perspective. I would love anything that could be possibly made into content. I would love to rip on the idea of a team being named after the salmon. Like, imagine the Seattle Sockeyes. That's, I guess, a potential nickname. No. You don't want to be something that can be eaten easily by bears, humans, birds. No. No. Cats. Common house cats. I mean, shoot. People can you. Like, not fire you. If you're a salmon, you can be put in a can after being killed. Oh, we're salmon. We're so brave. We swim upstream so we can spawn in the same place every single year. It's called adaptation. Maybe if you had a better plan, you wouldn't get eaten at the Ballard Locks the way that you do by all those fat sea cows and not manatees. I'm talking about the fat-ass sea lions that just hang out there lingering and eat all of the salmon that are wandering through. Okay, what other questions do we have? Not as interactive as I thought it might be. Okay. Let's go to our buddy Tab, longtime friend of the Gallant at Night radio program. Do you like the weather of the Northwest or the South better? Okay. This one is tricky because I have not experienced the full summer here. I will say I would rather be warm in the winter than cold ever. But in Houston, it is so damn hot during the summer, and the summer here is amazing. And the cold here, as someone who's lived in Boston and lived in Syracuse, New York, where it snows all year long, never quite gets cold enough to the point of snow here. Like it'll snow occasionally, but usually the entire winter, it's like 40 degrees and like misty rain. It's not great. It's kind of miserable, and there's not a lot of sunlight. I think we went like 80 days without sunlight, or a full day of sunlight or something like that. So that part of it, not great. And in Houston, I love that the winters are as warm as they are. The winter weather. Jeez, I'm getting all sorts of discombobulating all my words right now. The winter weather, fantastic. It's really good. If I had to pick between the two, I want to see how an entire summer here in Seattle goes. Right now, because I'm a wuss, I do like Houston's winter a little bit more, and I could put up with the heat. But the oppressive heat in the summer of Houston is worse than, I think, the cold that we are dealing with in the Pacific Northwest. So I have just totally straddled the fence on this one. Paul, give us an answer. Yeah, I can't right now. Give me a little bit of time. Zach asks, do you miss Houston? Yes, I do, and I'm going back there for the 4th of July. I have a lot of friends there. I love it here. I really do. I love the station that I work at. I have a great co-host in Danny O'Neill. I have a great producer in Jessamine McIntyre and Lydia Cruz, who helps out. Great bosses. Like, this is a fantastic team to be a part of. They respect me. They actually treat me well. It's not to say that Sports Radio 610 didn't treat me well at all. I'm just saying I'm treated better here. And I really like that side of it. A lot of people have asked this question. And I suppose that I should answer it because everyone's been asking me like, hey, Paul, are you okay? Paul, are you living near the Chaz? Which is apparently what the autonomous zone in Seattle is called. It's been discussed, I think, a lot by the mainstream news. It is like 5 blocks away from me. I legitimately live 5 blocks away. I honestly could go walk to it right now. Last night I went for a jog at about like 8 o'clock. I jogged back through it at about 8:30. It's still light out in Seattle at 8:30 during the summer. Or I guess it's not quite the summer yet, but I walked through. Like, there's barriers on the roads. There are no armed guards. I guess that is something that's been thrown out there. It seemed pretty chill to me. It just seemed like there was a bunch of people smoking pot and dancing around in a circle to music. Sort of felt like a block party. To me, it did not seem dangerous at all. But I've been being told by all sorts of relatives, Paul, stay safe. I'm fine. You don't need to ask anymore. I think, listen, I don't watch television news. I try not to because it feels like everything gets pulled in a political direction these days. Things are chill. I am not being bothered at all or affected at all in anything I do by what's going on 5 blocks from my apartment. And the big key is that they have not decided to incorporate the Mighty O donuts, which are right down the street. I went there, got my 2 Raspberry Riot donuts today. So good. They have not decided to incorporate those donuts into the autonomous zone. Should they do that, I would not be happy. But having walked through it, like I'm not scared of those people at all. I don't think you should really be either. I suppose that since nothing is going on, it is a little bit weird that during a time of a pandemic that there are so many people that are not social distancing anymore. I think for the most part, people were wearing face masks, but not everyone was wearing face masks. It's a little weird that you can protest in mass and you can't go to a bar. But I will sort of relent on having a hot take on that because there are some bars that are slightly open now, which I am very excited about, and I probably will go to one in the near area at some point tonight. What other questions do we have? Scuba-doop-doo-wop. Shibble-a-dee-doop-doop-doop-doop-doop-doop-doop. Doop-a-doop-doop. How do you plan to beat Brad in Madden? Asks Mick Martinez. Well, I'm not going to. I've already accepted that. I have joined in this Madden league with a couple of my old Sports Radio 610 compatriots, Josh Beard, who used to produce Gallant at night, Brian McDonald, who used to produce the Triple Threat, and on top of that, you got Kyle King, who used to do stuff for Sports Radio 610. Kyle is asking if he's the best coach in that league. No, you're not. I'm better than you. Mick Martinez asks again, how do I plan to beat Brad? Brad beat a team like 83-10. Now, he wasn't playing against a human. He was playing against the computer. But I just lost this week to the computer, the Oakland Raiders. I played awful. I was trying to make a young rookie receiver into like the next big thing by feeding him the ball every single play through an early, ugly interception. That didn't help me out. Fumbled with Lamar Jackson, who is my quarterback. I'm the New England Patriots in this dynasty. Somehow he became a New England Patriot. Yep, I know, it's weird. He was like a free agent as soon as I got into the league. I fumbled it 3 times. It was bad. I lost like 29-14 or something like that. It was ugly. Very, very ugly. So I'm not going to beat Brad. I couldn't beat Brian McDonald. I'm not going to beat Brad. What else do we have here? Devon Tabor asks, what's the best place to get coffee in Seattle? The best place to get coffee in Seattle is in my Keurig machine. I don't really believe in the idea that one coffee place is better than anything else. And I don't really subscribe to the idea either of like going to a coffee shop. Get good coffee grounds, get good coffee beans, make it yourself. It's cheaper. I'm going to go all the way to a coffee place when there's like a million Starbucks all over the place. In fact, there's like one literally underneath me. I'm on the 2nd floor of a 4-story building, and there's like a Subway and a Starbucks right underneath me. I go to the Subway. I never go to the Starbucks. It's overpriced. I can make a cup of coffee for myself for practically nothing. Why would I go and buy a cup of coffee somewhere? Oh, but Paul, it might taste good somewhere. Does it really? Like, I notice bad coffee. Do you notice, though, the discrepancies between good cups of coffee? I honestly, I guess I'm just not that picky about it. I'm not a coffee snob. To me, it's fuel. I drink it black. Like, doesn't really matter. Devon also asks, do you feel your beard blends in more in Seattle compared to Houston? Good question. I think a lot of people are growing beards now. I don't think it's just a Pacific Northwest thing. I'm going to keep the beard because it adds a little contrast to the face. My face is very pasty. It also makes me look like I'm not 25 years old, but I've been told recently that I actually look kind of old, so now I'm getting a little self-conscious about it because at age 31, I want to continue to be in denial about where I actually am over the course of my life. What else do we have? Samrosh Samuel asked about John McClain's article in the Houston Chronicle. It's consistent with how the Texans have been. From conversations that I've had, Bob McNair might have been racially insensitive. Bill O'Brien, no. Which makes that DeAndre Hopkins story weird. We talked about that a little bit last week on the show. What else do we have here? Sorry, I'm going through questions. Now all of a sudden I'm looking at myself. Scooby-doop-doo-wop, shibble-a-dee-doop-doop-doop, Scooby-doop-doop. Paul, what do you make of Damian Lillard's comments that he thinks the Blazers can upset the Lakers in the first round of a 7-game series? I like hearing it. I don't believe him. I like hearing it, though. I like Damian Lillard a lot. But I don't think that liking Damian Lillard allows me to root for the Portland Trail Blazers because Portland is a neighbor. The Lakers are winning that series. It is going to be some version of an NBA Finals between the Bucks, the Lakers, and the Clippers. I would like to say otherwise, but even with this time off, it's going to be one of those 3 teams. I will say that Houston maybe has more of a chance because James Harden's going to get some actual load management as opposed to just playing 82 games and playing all the minutes that he does. So that's a nice little wrench. What else do we have? Who told me he'd never listen to me again? Because I know Amir knows the answer to this question. Paul, where do babies come from? Go to google.com. There are some questions that people will ask you when you're a sports talk show host, and they like try to do it in a gotcha manner, like, hey, Paul, do you know this trivia? You should know this trivia. You're a sports talking head. You should know everything. No, we don't know everything. NFL knowledge. Seahawks, Texans, general NFL, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer. Like, we all have our areas of expertise. We're human beings. Oh, Paul, you're saying you're a human being. What? Streaming, like I'm doing right. My producer, when I was doing Sports Zone Unfiltered of my Spanish. I should be better at it. I honestly should. There is somebody that I met who is very dear to my heart within the last couple of years who primarily speaks Spanish, and I wish that I could speak it a little bit better. Sadly, I have been very lazy, and I have put zero effort forward. Kyle Blair asks, is your last name pronounced Gallant or Gallant? Haha, pot shots at one another. We should be Gallant. That's, I guess, what the word is. Goofus and Gallant. I don't think it's Goofus and Gallant. But I'm so used to saying Gallant that it's Gallant. Scooba-doop-doop-doop-doop-doo. I'm looking for questions and awkwardly singing as I do it. Why am I doing that? It's because I didn't do a very good job of laying things out so that I could find the next question. And I also hate the awkwardness of silence. Cobbler, this is the same person as Cobbler. Are you the CEO of Antifa now, Seattle Paul? Again, for anyone who's in Seattle, if you have been through the autonomous zone, it doesn't seem as crazy as it's being made out to be. At least, here's how I'm hearing it. I'm hearing like a game of telephone. There are people that don't live here who are telling me how things are here. And I'm like, I live 5 blocks away. I just walked there yesterday. I'm not going to act like I did a complete ground sweep of what's there. But like, it's very bizarre the amount of people that have not been anywhere near here who are telling me what it's like. And that are saying that I should be concerned. Sorry, I'm not. Like, I'm not concerned at all. This is not me being some sort of hardo or bold. I am a total coward when it comes to stuff that involves violence and guns and things like that. But, like, I'm not scared at all of what's going on down the street. Now, if things escalate, okay, that's a different story entirely. But things haven't escalated yet. There's just been a lot of marches that have come down the street. And those marches have actually stopped ever since the precinct of the Seattle Police Department, I guess, evacuated themselves. How this finishes, I have no idea. All I know is that I walked through the autonomous zone completely scot-free last night. It's totally easy. Tab had a couple of other questions. Who would you rather have right now to start a franchise, Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson? I would have said this a while ago. I said this towards the end of the 2018 NFL season, and I remember that this created issues with my listeners, my co-hosts. I think they thought I was trolling. I wasn't. You know, you're watching the playoffs. You see Patrick Mahomes doing what he's doing. It's pretty easy to say at the end of the 2018 season, especially when his defense is the reason that he didn't make it to his first Super Bowl in his first season as a starter. It's pretty easy to see that Mahomes is better. And think about some of the things that Mahomes improved on from his first season as a starter to his second season as a starter. He cut down on the sack number. He cut down on the interception number. He actually seems to be a little bit better when it comes to just being a mobile quarterback. You saw that touchdown run that he had against the Tennessee Titans. Mahomes has gotten, it's not just that Mahomes was better. He has also improved. I think he has widened the gap. By how much? I'm not sure. And it's not to say that Deshaun Watson isn't good. Watson's one of the top 5 quarterbacks, I think, in the game right now, as far as guys that I would want to start a team with. But it's Mahomes, it's Russell Wilson, and then it's everybody else. And I really want to know what Mahomes is going to be like this coming season. Yeah, this offseason maybe affects how ready he'll be going into the year. Maybe he's a little rusty. But, I mean, the jump that he made from his first season to his second season where he dislocated his kneecap, right? Like, holy crap. He was awesome. And, I mean, he's practically undefeated in the playoffs. Yes, he lost that AFC Championship game to the New England Patriots, but he's also great. Like, when this team has fallen down and fallen in holes in the playoffs, he's brought them back in. They were down 24-0 against the Texans? Evaporates that lead in like 5 seconds. They were down, I think, 14-0 at halftime to the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship game, the first one that he went into. Erased that pretty quickly. Against the 49ers, they're down 10 points. He played, honestly, for the most part, a bad game against San Francisco. Well, it takes us 5 minutes. This guy's the best in the game. Like, even over Russell Wilson, for those who probably don't like to hear that. Looking for more questions. Is there anything in Seattle that's as nasty as a South Oklahoman? For those who don't know, I used to joke while in Houston that people in Dallas are from South Oklahoma, and I still feel that way. If you watched last week's Ask Colin Anything, you'll know that I don't understand why Dallas thinks it's the Los Angeles of the South. You're near no bodies of water. You're in the middle of Oklahoma. The city is pretty, don't get me wrong, but like, you're some center of culture. You're closer to Oklahoma than anything else, and you're on the border of like Arkansas practically. Like, sorry, that is far from a hotbed of culture. In fact, it's far from anything that anyone cares about. And I will say this again. Someone growing up in Massachusetts, I had no idea really what the difference between Dallas and Houston was. Yet Dallas has a superiority complex about a lot of things. Houston has a bit of an inferiority complex when it comes to Dallas. Don't get me wrong. But I can see why. Like, there's just this deal with Dallas that I have never understood. I have never gotten. Like, you're not that fancy. You're not. What else do we have? That wraps up all the questions. Here we go. Old man Ryan Wooden, that's his Instagram handle. Have you sought trademark protection for that Corona comb over? I will be honest. I need to cut this thing, right? And I was going to get it cut here. But because I was mildly annoyed by the way that these double secret phases have been going and rolling out here, like we started with phase 1, we were supposed to be phase 2 June 1st. We get to phase like 1.5 at some point this week, Tuesday. I don't know. I'm saying to myself, I'm just going to wait to get my hair cut by my old hairstylist, Annie, when I go back to Houston at the end of this month, which I'm very much looking forward to. Cannot wait. I do miss it, and I will like to get to hang out with all my friends and people down there. What else do we have? That's pretty much Facebook. Those are all the questions on Twitter. What do we got on Periscope? That's the same thing as Twitter. Let's go back to the Restream app. Oh, here we go. Cool. Ryan Schreiner. Did Ryan Schreiner ask a question? He asked a bunch of questions last time, and I don't think I was able to see them. Paris John. Love the Texans helmet Miss you brought. That is a JJ Watt. Wait. Hang on. By the way, this is green screen background because my office is actually like there, like that. All that background is right there. But since I'm a hardo and I got a green screen, I decided I want to make the thing that I wanted everyone to see in my office, so I could be like one of those peacocking show pony TV show hosts that all have like these fancy backgrounds behind it. Like I have one of those too, and I had it before all this Rona stuff because I'm a weirdo that is obsessed with interior decorations for an apartment that very few people see. Yeah, I got that. Wait, no, there we go. I got that by being the flag football media bull MVP in 2017 with my 5 touchdowns. Oh, yeah. All right. What else do we got? Fred, he asks, will you refer to the Seahawks from Chaz or Seattle? No. I am almost living in Chaz. I will say that, but it's Seattle. Seattle, it's the same Seattle, it really, to me, and again, like, I haven't really walked around a whole lot, okay? So, I'm not going to say that everything that's being thrown out there is incorrect. All I am saying is that, like, it's not as crazy as everyone's making it out to be. There's, like, some warlord dude named Raz Al Ghul or something like that, who's, like, in charge. I didn't see him when I walked through. Everything seemed pretty chill to me. James Laux asks, do you see Clowny signing with the Seahawks or Texans first? I think that you're thinking about the Titans. And based off of today, John Robinson, yesterday, the general manager of the Titans, he said that Tennessee has talked to him, but it's been a while since they've talked to him. And the fact that they are looking at a long-term contract for Derrick Henry, maybe that opens up some cap space for Jadeveon Clowney, but I am still wondering whether or not Mike Vrabel, who I think liked Jadeveon Clowney, the player, but wasn't a fan of his habits off the field. This is at least from some things that I've heard. I'm not sure that he's going to be willing to bring him in, especially at whatever he's looking for, because you think about all the knee injuries. I do think there's still a decent chance that he ends up back with the Seahawks. if I had to make a bet, in fact, that's how weird things have been. I feel like the most likely team to bring him in is one of the teams that we haven't been hearing about. The teams that we've heard about the most have been the Browns, the Seahawks, the Titans, and like the Jets. But the Jets all of a sudden are claiming that they weren't in on it. Yeah, because the Clowny was never into you, Jets. You stink. You don't matter. Take the man at his word. He said he doesn't want to play for a sorry team. Believe him. What else do we have? Okay, last question. Kyle, this is a statement. This isn't even a question, Kyle. I was swimming in the pool earlier, and I got to the deep end, and I realized maybe 6 feet isn't so far down after all. Now that is a reference to a great Creed song from the album Weathered. And for those who don't know, I am a ginormous fan of all of those bands that yarl, whether it's Pearl Jam or Lifehouse or I guess Bush kind of yarls, not really. Soundgarden kind of does, though Chris Cornell, I think, R.I.P., deserves a little more credit than that. What was the other one? Desperate for changes, solving for truth. I'm close to the way I started. I think that's Lifehouse. That's Hanging by a Moment. Oh, The Calling. The Calling. What is it? If I could, then I would. I'll go wherever you will go. That's a yarling band. For whatever reason, I just have this fascination with yarling. I think it actually started because of the Carolina Panthers leading up to, I think, Super Bowl 50. I forget the guy's name on the Panthers who did it, but they did this thing called Creed bombing. So you go up to somebody and you just start singing Creed, like looking deep into their eyes and singing Creed lyrics. It's the funniest thing I've ever heard of. Like, what a great thing to do when you're just hanging out with your buddies. Just walk up to somebody and say, hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge and I'm thinking maybe 6 feet ain't so far down. So yeah, I like the way those bands sound. I'm a little embarrassed that my CD collection as a kid was, I'm not sure which one is most embarrassing. I had Will Smith's album, I think it was either Will 2K or Millennium. Featured Wild Wild West. I love the song Wild Wild West. I had a tape cassette of Seal and his greatest hits. So you have Kissed by a Rose. I had a Jim Croce tape cassette. Famous for Operator. And Big Bad Leroy Brown, You Don't Mess Around with Jim. The weirder ones. Weathered and Human Clay by Creed. And also, I had a Ricky Martin CD. I don't know why, but I was definitely living La Vida Loca. Because at some point in my life, I wanted to win the Cup of Life of awkward collections of CDs. Alex Mahar asks, what's your Madden record online? Well, Alex Mahar is asking this because I've only played Alex Mahar online, and I think the only other person I played is in my Madden Dynasty, Brian McDonald. I don't like to play people online. I think I like to sort of take advantage of the computer and how much they suck. So I am 0-2 in Madden 20 playing it online. Mahar beat me fairly soundly. If I'm not mistaken, I don't remember the score. I just remember I lost. And the last person I played, Brian McDonald, it never was a game. I scored a touchdown and kicked a 2-point conversion. Scored a 2-point conversion to make it a 1-point game at the end, but the game was over. I needed to recover an onside kick. Didn't happen. So yeah, there you go. All right, I don't think I have anything else. I'm done with you people. I'm going to go to the autonomous zone. And I'm going to walk in there and maybe I'll do something. You know, one of the other things that we had as a kid, and I'm just rambling now. When I was a kid, we had a lot of show tunes in our house. We had a lot of show tunes that would be played when we went on trips anywhere. And one of the ones that I love, this might be my favorite musical, is Les Miserables. Miserables. I'm going to embarrass myself right now, but dang it, I love this song. Do you hear the people singing the songs of angry men? It is the music of a people who will not be slaves again. I don't know the rest of the words to it, but it sounds like that. Honestly, I feel like all the protesters should be singing that song. It is a banger. All right, well, I hope this worked, and I hope that you guys like this time. as a potential time going forward for Ask Gallant Anythings. Paul, why haven't you done anything with your YouTube channel other than this? Which essentially seems like you're just kind of halving it and not putting effort into, I don't know, like the scouting video you did on Jordan Brooks. That's a great question, and I don't have an answer to it other than maybe I'm a little bit lazy. I'm sorry. We'll try to have more in the future. This, I feel like, is a pretty good time to do Ask Gallant Anything. We can move it up further. I would like to hear your thoughts on when this should take place. What's the best time for you on a Friday? Because I think it's the best time for me. Because I want to hang out with my Houston peeps, but I also want my Seattle people to understand me a little bit more. And what you're coming to understand probably is that, wow, Paul is way weirder than I thought he was. So you're welcome for that. You get to see the shape of my heart. I think that's a Backstreet Boys song. Show you the shape of my heart. All right, I'm done. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure that you tune in to Danny and Gallant, 7 o'clock on Monday morning Pacific time. You can also subscribe to the Danny and Gallant podcast. Please, for the love of my cat, leave a 5-star rating, a nice little review. Every little bit helps. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel, YouTube, Paul Gallant. You'll be able to watch this on this. I have a Twitch stream for those who care. We will be doing some things with video games in the near future. I'm still working on some technical capacities on this giant computer that I have in front of me before we actually get into that, but I do have something coming that I think you guys will enjoy. I say this all the time, and I'm trying not my best to kick the can down the road further and further. On Twitter at Gallant Says, Facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. You can also just add me on Facebook if you haven't added me already, if you want to stalk my personal life. What else do we have? Instagram, at Gallant Says, if you want to see my personal life. At Sports Paul, Pawl, if you want to see the occasional sports memes that I post. And that's just about it. So thank you so much for tuning in. So long. Farewell until next Friday when it comes to Ask Gallant Anything, and until Monday when it comes to me yelling like a foghorn into the microphone and potentially deafening you all. Be safe this weekend.